Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Zimbabwe's 2008 elections were a watershed in that no one was left in any doubt of Zimbabwe's vote rigging powers and the sheer futility of holding future elections without first implementing the reforms. This is a statement of fact, a historic fact. We cannot run away from this as a nation. This is acknowledged by those in the opposition. I have often referred to David Coulthard's book and a quotation from it. I'd like to go back to it again today because I think it is important that we get the historic facts right. In this book, Coulthard admitted this was talking about the 2013 elections. The worst aspect for me about the failure to agree a coalition was that both MDCs could not do the obvious, withdraw from the elections. The electoral process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw, which would have compelled SADC to hold Zanu PF to account. But such was the distrust between the MDCT and MDCN that neither could withdraw for fear the other would remain and win the seats. In other words, the electoral process in Zimbabwe was so flawed. He is talking of 2013. That has not changed without any reforms. The process still remains incredibly flawed and illegal. So it doesn't make any sense to keep on participating in these flawed elections. It really doesn't make any sense at all. In his case, the explanation why they had gone ahead and participated in the 2013 elections is because of greed. Zanu PF was offering whoever was willing to participate a few seats, and these are the ones that they feared withdrawing for fear that the other would remain in the election, winning the seats. These are the seats that attracted them to participate. And now we have been caught in this cycle where instead of sitting down and saying, let's implement the democratic reforms, let's restore the dignity of every citizen to a meaningful say in the electoral process, we are now caught up in this absolutely meaningless cycle where the opposition keep on participating out of greed. Nothing else. There is no other logical explanation why they are keeping on participating in these meaningless elections. We really cannot afford to keep on pretending this is not the problem. This is not the problem. It is the problem. It is at the heart of the problem. There is a new kid on the block. Richard Chapman, and has launched his party, and it has been given good coverage in the country. His Democratic Union of Zimbabwe. He is hell-bent on participating in these elections. Here is an interview he gave recently with one of Zimbabwe's leading media house, interviewed by Trevor. Let's listen to him.
Political party pushing a political agenda, clearly aware of the environment we're in. And our job is to show that we're solution oriented to the people. We get into office and we take the charge and take the lead in government at say, September, August of 2023. We're still going to have economic sanctions in this country. So we are showing that we can solve problems in environments that are tough and difficult instead of posting these things up. So when people are saying, how come you're having your events and so forth, we've applied for them in the measures they've given us and in the timeframes they've allowed us to do it. And we do get denied the same way every other party does. We have been. Last Friday, I was supposed to be in Wange, and that was denied. And we had one in another province that was denied. We continue moving. So if they deny us in one area, we were applying in another area. And then we just ask people to transport to that area. If they were denied in one area, we just continually move around. But strategically, we know that from laws of probability, we might get turned down X number of times. Let's apply X number of times. So the meeting still happens, and we continue to move.
And you don't make noise about not being allowed.
We're a political party pushing a political agenda. That's it. That's it.
How naive can you be? We are a political party pushing a political agenda. The problem with Zimbabwe is the political system. The electoral process is flawed, is illegal. That is the main problem here. And we cannot keep on pretending that somehow we can still change it. We cannot. The main thrust here should be to restore democratic reforms, implement the democratic reforms, and thus dismantle the Zanu PF rigging machinery. But to participate, knowing this system is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, you're actually giving the regime legitimacy and thus perpetuating the dictatorship. One is going to answer, what are you trying to achieve here? Clearly, our friend is throwing his head in, participating in these elections, not because he wants to achieve any democratic changes in Zimbabwe, but because he's after the same thing that Nelson Chamisa and others are after. The few seats that Zanu PF is giving away. Because Zanu PF is not going to lose an election in which it has got so much power. The other day, I was discussing a video of Professor Jonathan Moyo explaining how the present individuals in ZEC are nothing but just dolls, absolutely helpless. The real organization of ZEC's activity is done by CIOs or former CIOs. And the individuals like Justice Priscilla Chigumba are just there to give the impression that ZEC is a functioning body. It's not. They're not in charge of anything at all. Everything is done for them. They are only there to rubber stamp whatever the Zanu PF operatives in ZEC want done. And so therefore, then for somebody to come and say, we are going to participate in this election regardless of those things, one is going to say, well, you are accepting that when you say regardless, Zanu PF is rigging these elections, and you are participating and they are giving the process legitimacy. So all you are after are those few seats Zanu PF is giving away to entice people like you to participate, people like Nelson Chamisa to participate. You're not changing anything. We cannot keep on having a situation here where the elections are rigged, and the morning after the election, these people turn around, oh, the elections were rigged. And yet, right now, they're saying, oh, we know the process is being rigged, and we are participating in because we are convinced we're going to change it. Of course, they know they are not going to change it. They are only after the few seats that they'll know Zanu PF is giving away to entice them to participate, regardless of how the process is, how flawed the process is. The one thing Zimbabwe cannot afford is yet another rigged election this year. The country is in serious economic meltdown right now. I've just been reading an article where the African Development Bank was advising the Zanu PF government not to sell the country's mineral wealth that are still to be dug as security for loans. The warning has been given several times by IMF and the World Bank, and the regime has ignored them. So the regime is doing everything it can to stay in power. And some of the beneficiaries of this looting of the nation's resources are the ones who are bankrolling the regime vote rigging machinery to make sure that the regime stays in power. We cannot afford to participate in a process that is so blatantly flawed. We can all see it is flawed, to give it legitimacy, and then we complain about it. Our friend Richard Chapman and his friends, they are not participating in these 2023 elections because they want to see democratic change in Zimbabwe. It's because they are after the few seats that are being offered by Zanu PF as a bribe, as bait to entice the opposition to participate. And they are joining into that melee. That is it. We are still nowhere near achieving the objective of making sure we have got free, fair, and credible elections. We restore the right of every Zimbabwean to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. That is the holy grail, because that is the only guarantee of a democratic and accountable government, the very essence of good governance. That is what we should be aiming for. And I think these opportunists who are coming in to participate, to give the process, the present flawed process legitimacy, they are nothing but a distraction to say the very least. And after 43 years of rigged elections, it is insane that 2023 we should have another rigged election. And the same cowboys complaining that the elections were rigged, as if they didn't know, when he is admitting himself that the process is flawed. and yet he's still stubbornly participating without any reforms to make sure that it is not, the rigging is corrected. The most important message here is that we really cannot afford another rigged elections in Zimbabwe. That is at the heart of this problem. Participating without reforms is just perpetuating the Zanu PF dictatorship. This is the last thing we want. And I think people of Zimbabwe must realize and keep their eyes on the ball. The ball is to make sure we have got free, fair, and credible elections. And anything short of that, to reject it. The Zimbabwe's 2008 elections were a watershed in that no one was left in any doubt of Zanu PF's vote rigging powers and the sheer futility of holding future elections without first implementing the reforms. We must emphasize on implementing the reforms and restoring the people's power to free, fair, and credible elections as the basis of future elections. Those who are coming in and pretending that they can still participate and have meaningful change at the end of the day without reforms are a distraction and must be discredited as just opportunists that they are, as the sellouts, no different from what we've seen with Chamisa and company. We cannot afford another rigged election. That is the message we must take home today. Thank you and good night.